Yeah, Jesus seemed to get in the building.
I'm not tired.
I pay. Girl, I'm not gonna do it long. I already pay. This is 1 second ride, that's why.
Oh, nice.
I trying to ride this, I gotta pay. So, I just pay. So,
So you liked it the first time then?
yeah. Then I come from a long way. So, I want to save much
Get
as I
as much
can.
as you can, definitely.
I want her to stick her head out so she can do that.
Where did you come from?
Jonesboro, Arkansas. How far y'all live?
We are in Springfield, Missouri, so only about an hour and a half.
Oh, you're closer.
Yeah.
I drive about 4.5.
Yeah.
Get here.
All right, everyone. We do also have family-friendly options. We've got a few RV campsites over there. Hard to see it because there's no RVs right now. We've got a couple glamping tents back there. Behind this building, we do have a tree house. And this building itself, it houses our two most popular options, our Bengal and our Siberian suites. Now, our Siberian, the one on the very end, does tend to be the most popular because you can look right out your window into that enclosure, so sometimes you can see two tigers from your roof. If you're out here on the porch of either of the two, you can sometimes see Jake if he's out in his habitat. He lives over here on the right. But I don't see Jake at the moment. He's another one of our African servals, so it does make sense that he's inside on a cooler day like today. Now, Jake on his property is essentially running an illegal petting zoo, so he's getting those animals confiscated due to the many animal welfare violations that he had. So that's how we got Jake here to his new home, and you'll see that his home does have a top on it. Any of our animals that are really good at jumping or climbing, we make sure they've got a top to their enclosure. That would be our servals, our bobcats, our cougars, our leopards, and our jaguar. But as we scooch on up here, you guys will notice that these tiger and lion enclosures don't have a top. These animals are too top heavy to climb vertically for too long, and they can jump, but just not this high, as well as they are equipped with a jump guard. Now here on the left, there are two female tigers that do share this enclosure. They might be in their den, or their enclosure is a little interesting. It does go all the way back there, and it does wrap around the other side of the building, so you can't always see them if they're back there. But there are two females that share. One named Joey, and one named Khaleesi. Khaleesi is a golden tabby, or a strawberry tabby tiger. And so she's on a different subspecies, but she is different in her coloration. We'll talk a little bit more about those guys later on in the tour. Now these two females, they did come to us from that Colorado rescue, and they actually used to share an enclosure with Aurora and Lakota. That very first one that I was talking about, all four of them were together. But Aurora and Khaleesi are both very big divas, and those two girls cannot end up getting along, so we had to give them their own space, and they enjoyed a lot more being 2 and 2. We'll go ahead, we'll move on down here. Now laying down here in the grass, you're going to see a female lion. Her name is Mari, and Mari comes to us from the facility in Indiana. Now the owner of this Indiana facility had 120 animal rights violations against him, as well as he did have ties to the Tiger King. And in 2020, we were able to go in and rescue 4 lions and 4 tigers from this facility. But they came to us in some pretty rough conditions, and in the worst condition of all of them was a male lion named Chief, who was so malnourished that you could count his ribs. And if you guys have been here before, you might have seen Chief in this enclosure with Mari, because they did used to share. There's a pretty big age difference between them. Mari just turned 7, Chief just turned 17, so there's a good 10 years that encouraged us to split them up. And when we split up the animals here, of course the best option would be that everyone gets their own habitat. But every now and then we do have to utilize our double night houses, and so you guys will see that there are 2 dens per enclosure. Sometimes we've got to house 2 animals together that can't share and alternate their access to the grass every other day. Kind of like what I was talking about with our leopard and our jaguar up in the Discovery area. It's not ideal, but we do this because of a man in Quitman, Arkansas. This man at one point, he had 60 big cats that he could no longer care for. 4 of his lions escaped, and they were shot, and they lost their lives. And this man then gave us a call, wanting to know how he might euthanize the remaining 56 animals in his care. Now, we really did not want that to happen, and so we worked with him. We brought back 21 of them here. We found forever homes for the rest with other reputable sanctuaries. But when we brought back the 21, we didn't quite have the space, so that's when we started to utilize these double night houses, and sometimes housing them together if we don't have the space. We'll go ahead, we'll scooch on up here. Like I said, guys, not ideal, but it does allow us to rescue more animals in need. That is always our goal here. We want to help as many of them as we can. And usually, the space ends up becoming available pretty quickly on. I mean, you guys can see Chief, he doesn't live in there anymore, and he does now have his own space down in our retirement area. Now this next enclosure, it is home to 5 more of our African servals. Their names are Sammy, Enzo, Giselle, Lexi, and Whistler. Hey guys, these African servals, like I was saying, on a cooler morning, it is hard to see a lot of them out. They do enjoy the heat. They want to be inside. So we might not be able to see any of our servals today, but that's just fine. All of the servals that do live in here, they were previously owned as somebody's pet. You guys, servals really do not make good pets, and one of the reasons is that they're incredible hunters. These guys catch about 50% of what they hunt, and if that doesn't sound like a super high percentage, a lion or a tiger, for example, only catches about 10 to 20%. So these guys are very skilled at what they do. They can jump right up into the air to catch flying prey, very similar to those bobcats. Servals can do 10 to 15 feet up into the air, and they've been known to just rip birds right out of the air. And if they're being kept in a house and they've got all that energy that they would use for hunting, but nowhere to expel it, they're going to end up pretty destructive. They also have a bite force that is 3 to 4 times as strong as a house cat's, and they're not afraid to use that if they ever feel threatened. And they spray. These guys spray about 20 to 40 times an hour. So if you're keeping it in your house as a pet, they will not restrain that to a litter box for you. They will be doing that everywhere to mark territory. And people eventually realize, okay, fine, servals don't make good pets, but they still wanted that exotic-looking lap leopard, and so people did end up breeding an African serval to a domestic house cat. Are we seeing one? Oh my goodness! The whole time I didn't even see one, and we've got one right along the fence line there, you guys, right by that box. If you want to go ahead and stop right here.
Chilling right next to us.
I think we were all looking at him right there the whole time, and that was one of them.
It's not there. It is
By that box, you guys. You'll see some stripes in the leaves there.
cute.
You guys might have noticed their ears. They do have some incredible ears. They have the biggest ears out of any cat relative to their body size. And if our ears were as big as theirs, they would be as big as dinner plates. So these guys do have some incredible hearing. Now, when people invented that Savannah cat, the hybrid of a serval and a house cat, they thought that they were creating something that was more domestic. Let me tell you, those Savannah cats, they're just as fierce and aggressive as the servals. We actually do have a Savannah cat that shares with our servals. His name is Tigger, but I didn't see Tigger as we were going through here either. Now, he's about half their size, and his size is not a good indicator of how fierce he is. Like I said, he is just as fierce as the servals. He likes to pick fights with them. He does sometimes win those fights, so we make it a point here that all of our animals are predators, not pets. Even if they might seem more domestic, they truly are not. We'll go ahead, we'll keep on moving here, you guys. Our next enclosure is going to be home to Montana. He's a male tiger. You guys are going to see him laying on his yellow platform bench up there. The Montana comes to us from that Colorado rescue. Here in his enclosure, along with everyone else's, you guys are going to see a bunch of stuff in there. You'll see balls, barrels, cardboard boxes. You'll see some pumpkins and other toys. And all of these items are part of our enrichment program. So enrichment is just going to be anything that stimulates their bodies, their brains. It's going to emulate natural behaviors for them that they would get out in the wild. So they can play and hunt and stalk their toys. They can bite them and scratch them and get out all those natural behaviors. Because sometimes we do like to encourage the cats to play with their toys by rubbing fun smells on them. these guys love to investigate different smells. They have an organ in their mouth. It's called a Jacobson's organ, and it kind of works like a second nose. And they can gain way more sensory information about a smell using that organ in their mouth rather than just using their nose. And they make a pretty funny face when they do that. If you guys have ever seen a cat holding their face open in a very goofy expression. They've got their nose all scrunched up, their tongue sticking out of their mouth, wide open, kind of looks like they're yawning, but they're just sitting there holding it. That's what's known as a phlegm response, or here we call it stinky face. And if they're making stinky face, they're taking in a big deep breath and they're investigating that smell using the Jacobson's organ in their mouth. So sometimes we'll put kitchen spices, herbs, perfume, and cologne, and we'll rub it all over their toys and they go crazy for that. We'll go ahead, we'll keep on moving here.
What does he weigh?
Him? I would say Montana probably weighs somewhere around 300, 350 maybe. But that brings us into a very good point on how much tigers weigh. This enclosure is not out and about for us, but we do have a white tiger that lives in here named Robbie. He's probably up in his den, and he is very easy to spot. Now, Robbie, he was rescued from a man in Oklahoma. This was a private owner. He had 6 big cats, and he wasn't taking the very best care of them. He was feeding them things that they shouldn't have been eating, like roadkill, and this led to them being really overweight. So, typical tiger, they weigh about 250 to 500 pounds or so. But Robbie, he weighed almost 700 pounds when we first rescued him. Now, he's a pure white tiger, which means he doesn't have super visible stripes. His stripes are really light as well. And so he is almost just pure white. And he would have his back turned to people, and they would assume he was a polar bear. He was that dang big. So we really needed to help him lose weight. And we put him through diet and exercise. And the best way for these guys to get exercise is through playing with all these toys that they've got. Now, Robbie does have a favorite toy. His is that big red ball behind his platform. He likes to roll it down the hill, and then every now and then you'll catch him picking it back up in his mouth and carrying it back up the hill. Now, that ball weighs 60 pounds, so he gets in a very good workout when he does that. And he has lost a decent amount of weight since being here, and he's at a more manageable 550 to 600 pounds or so. He is still getting healthier. We'll go ahead, we'll move on up here. It is important, we do not always know the health of these animals before we get them. They can come to us really overweight like Robbie, or really underweight like Chief, that male lion that I mentioned, and it's up to us to rehabilitate them. Yeah, we're gonna see Savannah, she's this next one in this very corner. But I was saying, it's up to us to rehabilitate them just because a lot of these pseudo facilities and private owners that we get them from don't always know the best ways to take care of their animals. And the sad reality is that some of them might know, they just simply don't care.
Savannah.
Now, this next enclosure, it is home to Savannah. She's this female lion laying right down here in the corner. And she comes from that Indiana facility. And it took her a long time to get used to things here. It can be that way for a lot of our animals. When they come from not the best situations, I don't blame them one bit of being weary of new people or new places, or new experiences in general. That was definitely the case with Savannah. It took her a long time before she was used to any of us here, but these days it does seem like she enjoys it quite a bit. Doesn't seem like she has a care in the world. She spends most of her time just relaxing. She loves to lounge either down here. Her platform is one of her other favorite spots, or up in her night house area. Now, she's not doing that. She does love to be a little nosy. She loves checking up on everyone around her and seeing what they're doing. Her neighbors interest her. If animal care is up there walking around doing stuff, she's got to see what they're doing. And she does also like to be a little playful, but she's kind of goofy because her favorite toy is not one of the ones that we give them. It's not a ball or a barrel. It's actually just a stick. And if you give her a pile of sticks, she's the happiest cat ever. She'll roll around in them. She has even been seen picking up a stick in her mouth and running around like a big old happy dog in her enclosure. So she has got a lot of personality. She's a big old goof. But we'll keep on moving here. Now, you guys might notice that the trees inside our enclosure do have fencing on them. And we just do that so that the cats won't scratch. They do like to scratch on things in order to keep their claws sharp and clean, as well as mark territory. But we just don't want them doing that on trees that could end up falling over. So we make sure we provide them plenty of other things to scratch. Hey guys, down to the left, kind of kitty corner, you guys are going to see a bunch of construction going on down there. And that's a new part of our facility that we're constructing right now called Freedom Field. And Freedom Field is going to be 13 more acres of new habitat. We're taking in a big influx of about 30 more cats at the end of this year. And so we need a good space to put them. They're all gonna go down there. And so that, we are working on that right now. Those animals are gonna be coming to us from a reputable facility in Florida, hopefully by the end of this year. You guys, over here on the right-hand side, there are two separate animals that share. There are two white tigers. Right now we see Mama. She's this one making her way down the hillside. But if you do end up seeing a white tiger with dark stripes, that's her mate Bosco. And we do lovingly call these guys Mom and Dad of the refuge because we have 6 of their kids here. So Aurora, she's the first white tiger that I mentioned up in the discovery area. She was in her den, but she belongs to them. And then the first 5 white tigers down our gravel pathway, Tanya, Kisman, Blackfire, Peyton, and Rockland, they all belong to these 2 as well. And they all came to us from Colorado, where these 2 were being used to breed cubs for their cub petting industry. Hey guys, for a little bit of context, out in the wild, a female tiger would give birth to her first litter when she's about 3 to 5 years old, and then those cubs are going to stay with mom until they're about 2, and then they would go off on their own. But in these cub petting industries, as soon as that female is physically able to reproduce, the breeders start the process. And then as soon as she does give birth, they'll take those babies away from her. And her body, thinking that the babies have died, is able to go into heat almost immediately again. And so she is able to produce way more babies than she would naturally. In Mama's case here, she was 5 years old when we rescued her, already had 4 litters of cubs that we know of. So that's in the amount of time she should have had 1. And that's, of course, really hard on her, but it's going to be even harder on the babies. When the cubs are taken away from their moms so early, they do not get the right nutrition that they need. And then on top of that, people are holding them, playing with them, passing them around to each other all day. And all of that handling, mixed with the lack of nutrients, leads to many health issues for them, but one of the biggest ones we see is something called metabolic bone disease. This makes their bones very weak and brittle. It's a lot easier for them to fracture or to break. So in these cub petting industries, when people think that they are just innocently playing with baby tigers, they're actually breaking their little limbs over and over again. And so, of course, this is going to cause a lot of health issues for these animals. One of the litters that these guys had, their triplets, Blackfire, Peyton, and Rockland, their metabolic bone disease was so bad when we first rescued them that they could not even walk. Now, they do walk around today, but they've got a permanent limp because of it, so these issues will follow them around their whole lives. And there are many cubs that aren't even that lucky, because the most popular option for these breeders is that as soon as the cubs get too big, around 3 to 4 months, they're just either sold off into the exotic pet trade, or more often than not, inhumanely put down. Now, this is no longer legal here in the United States, but just as of last year, in December of 2022, the Big Cat Public Safety Act was signed, which is awesome. It is now federally illegal to have private ownership of big cats like this, as well as it did ban those public hands-on interactions, so no more cub petting, no more pay-to-play programs here in the U.S. But it is still important to do research, because there are many people that were grandfathered into that law. And if they had their big cats before it was signed, they'll be allowed to keep them as long as they were registered by this past summer. And in many other countries, it is still totally legal. So if you're ever somewhere international and you're not sure, it might be a good idea to keep up that research. And we do offer a small resource here to help you guys with research. These are our true sanctuary checklists. I'm going to pass them out after our tour, and they have questions on it that you can ask yourself when you visit a new facility to determine if they're a true sanctuary or not, because anywhere can call themselves a sanctuary. And that's just to help keep you guys and the animals safe. But we'll go ahead and keep on moving here. And as we do, you guys might notice that way out there to the left, you'll see some fencing out in through the trees. And that is another part of our facility called Rescue Ridge. This was built back in 2012. There was a woman in Mountainburg, Arkansas. She had 34 big cats that needed a home, and her health was failing, so we had to act quickly. And we quickly built 20 habitats in 128 days in order to take some of those animals from her. Now today for us though, about 10 years later, that part of the facility does serve as that retirement area that I mentioned. The land out there is a lot flatter, so our older animals do not have to walk up and down all these hills. And it's a lot farther out, so any animals that are more shy, less social, we do not expect them to be around the public, and they can live down there where they get the peace and quiet that they need. And this enclosure on our right is home to another couple, but this one's a pretty odd couple. Now, some of you might have thought that that was Bosco, the white tiger that I mentioned in that one, but this is actually Glacier. He lives in this one, and Glacier shares with a female lion named Ongawa. Now, Ongawa and Glacier come to us from Indiana, where we think that that facility was trying to use them to breed hybrids. Because, like I mentioned up top, hybrids do not happen naturally in the wild. The main reason for this is that lions and tigers don't share territory. Lions are from Africa, tigers are from Asia, but there is an exception to this rule, being Asiatic lions. A small population of them do live in a forest in India, but according to wildlife officials, no tigers are seen in that forest, so the point still stands. These guys should not be running into each other out in the wild, but even if they did, they'd probably be more concerned about food or territory than they ever would be about making babies. They do also have a lot of personality differences between them. Lions are far more social animals than tigers. Lions are actually the only big cats that are social. They live in groups called prides. And prides can be up to 30 individuals, which is a big group. They see a lot more other lions than tigers ever see of other tigers, because tigers are far more solitary animals. They, of course, are going to see their mom and their litter mates up until the age of 2, but after that, they have already learned how to be a good tiger, and so they go off on their own. And they only ever come together when they're breeding. They do also have a lot of personality differences when it comes to the cold and the water. Lions are not the biggest fans of those elements. Being African animals, they just don't see them as much. But tigers do really seem to be fans. Now, the two in this enclosure have spent so much time together that I think they're starting to rub off on each other. Ongawa there, the lion, she is actually the least social of the two of them. As you can see, she prefers her alone time. Glacier does like to try to come up to her, and he'll give her kisses and affection, and she'll tolerate it every now and then, but more often than not, she just gives him attitude and wants him to leave her alone, which is kind of strange for a lion. And she's also a little goofy because she doesn't mind the cold too much. She is one of our only lions that'll come out and play in the snow, and she's even been seen sliding down this hillside like she's a little sled. So she is very goofy. She does keep it typical when it comes to water, though, for a lion. She does not like the water. Glacier would have his pool up for the summer because tigers do love water, and he'd be in there splashing around, and she would be keeping a very good distance because she hates to get wet. We'll go ahead. We will keep on moving here. You guys, down to the left, you will see a building. That's our vet hospital. This was built just a few weeks before that big Colorado rescue in 2016, and thank God we did build this because it's been incredibly beneficial. Before we had our vet hospital, we did have to take the animals an hour away off-site to get medical care. But now, anytime we have an issue, we can just bring them right down here. We do have a full-time vet. We've got a fully functioning operating room for them and 3 recovery rooms for our animals. And we will keep on moving here. Now, guys, here in a minute, we'll be passing this road on our left, which does lead to our commissary, or the food prep area. And as I'm sure you guys can imagine, they go through a whole lot of food. They go through about 500 to 600 pounds of meat a day. And I do want to shout out Tyson, because they donate over 300,000 pounds of meat to us a year in order to help feed our animals. And we do also take donations all the time from locals of things like cattle that have died naturally, as well as produce donations from our bears. Now, we will have enclosures on both sides. This very first left-hand side one does not have anybody in it. So we're going to talk about this first one on the right, which is home to Chuck and Athena. It's hard to say which one that is. I believe that one is Chuck walking up the hillside there. Now, Chuck and Athena are brother and sister, and they came to us along with their other sister, Abigail, but Abigail does like to pick fights, so she lives down at Rescue Ridge by herself. Now, the 3 of them came to us from a facility in Branson, Missouri. Now, this facility did not take safety as seriously as we do here. They allowed for staff and volunteers to enter enclosures with their animals. And one day, a 16-year-old volunteer was leaving their enclosure when he tripped and fell. And if you know anything about these animals, they saw that as a natural sign of weakness, and they acted on instinct, and they did attack that boy. And he's alive today, but he's paralyzed. He advocated for these guys to come and live here, and we are very grateful for that, because if he had not, there's a really big chance that they would have lost their lives. Since 1900 dangerous incidents in the U.S. involving people and big cats in captivity. So those are over 300 totally preventable attacks. These are not wild animal attacks. And in almost half of those interactions, the animals are the ones that end up losing their lives. So we are really grateful that that boy understood that this was the fault of the facility he was at, and frankly his own fault, and not on these animals for acting on instincts that are so incredibly natural, they cannot help them. We'll go ahead, we'll keep on moving here, you guys. Our left-hand side enclosure here is home to Karma. She's a female liger. I'm not seeing Karma at the moment. It's a little unusual. She does love to be out. She might be down in her den right now. Or this enclosure is a little hard to see her, and she's at the very bottom of the hillside. So she's down there. Might be kind of hard to see her. But she's a female liger that we rescued from a drive-through safari park in Stratford, Missouri. Now, the owner of this facility was told that he could raise his fencing or he could give up his animals, because this man had fencing that was 6 feet high. These animals are definitely capable of jumping over 6 feet. Once they're up on their hind legs, arms upstretched, they're probably upwards of like 9-10 feet tall. So they could have leapt over at any moment. And that man was encouraged to go ahead and relinquish his dangerous animals. So that's how we got Karma. Now, with her being a liger, you would see both lion and tiger features on her. She's not out here for us to see, but you guys, she honestly looks a little more lion-like. Her coloration is more lion-like. But she does also have tiger features. She's got some stripes. They're not as dark or as thick as the normal tigers, but they are there. And she does also have white spots on the backs of her ears. We can scooch on up here and we'll talk about Fred, and we can talk about those white spots on a tiger's ears. All tigers and a variety of other cat species do have these white spots on the backs of their ears. And with Fred up there, if he ever thought that something was sneaking up on him from behind, all he has to do is flick those ears back and forth, and the white spots actually mimic blinking eyes to anything sneaking up behind him. And it looks like Fred has spotted us, and he is gone crazy mode. You guys might notice he's a little smaller than a typical tiger would be. He is still a juvenile. He's still growing up. He's only about maybe 10, 11 months old or so. And he won't reach his full-grown potential until about 5 years. He'll look about full-grown, maybe around 2 to 5 years old. Somewhere around there, he'll look it. But he'll still grow all the way up till 5. Now, unfortunately, you guys, I can't tell you anything about Fred's rescue or anything like that, because he's actually part of our witness protection program. So we will occasionally rescue animals that are a part of ongoing legal cases. And because of that, we can't say anything. His previous owners, they are in litigation right now, and that information is not yet public. So as soon as it becomes public, we will be able to tell everybody Fred's story. Until then, though, we can just look at his cuteness. But if you guys come back and visit us in maybe a year or two, hopefully we'll have his story and we'll be able to share it with you guys. But we will go ahead, we'll keep on scooching here.
Thanks for the show, Fred.
Okay, guys, over here on our left-hand side, there are 2 male tigers that share this enclosure. This one is Tigger. He's making that stinky face I was talking about. And he shares with Floyd. Now, Floyd doesn't seem to be out. Floyd is an orange tiger. And he might be in his den right now or somewhere where we can't see him. But these 2, they came to us from Oklahoma, from that same private owner that had that big overweight tiger that I was telling you about, Robbie. He also had these 2. Now, Tigger up there, he's another one of our golden tabby or strawberry tabby tigers. He is absolutely beautiful. He is one of my favorite looking animals here. But you guys, the sad reality is that he should not exist. These golden tabby tigers are a product of inbreeding. They're not seen out in the wild. They're just a genetic mutation that occurs to a normal tiger due to 2 copies of a recessive wideband gene. And it is very complicated the way these genetics happen, so it won't happen naturally on its own. It is the cause of many people actively causing this to happen in captivity. Now, it's very rare. There is an estimated only 30 of these golden tabbies in the entire world. So they are actually considered the world's 3rd most rare creature. We are very lucky enough to have 2 of them here at Turpentine. Now, you guys, these golden tabby tigers do not have the same amount of camouflage as a normal tiger, so they would not do well out in the wild. Even if they were happening out there, they wouldn't live long. Now, you might be curious, how does an orange tiger have too much camouflage if its environment is green? Well, tigers and a lot of their prey are dichromats, which means they're red-green colorblind. They can't actually distinguish between that orange or green tone, and therefore, a tiger blends in very well to its environment. But these golden tabby tigers or white tigers, for example, they will not have the same amount of camouflage that a normal tiger does. And so they'll stick out like a sore thumb. It's going to be a lot harder for them to catch their food, or if they are weaker or more vulnerable, they'll be subject to other predators like other tigers. So they just would not do well out in the wild. We'll go ahead, we'll keep on moving here. Over on our right-hand side, if you guys look up near the night house, kind of like right where I'm at, once you get to that little clearing in the trees, you'll probably be able to see that male tiger way up there near his night house. That's Poncho. Poncho is the brother of Montana. So if you guys remember that male tiger from the other side of the loop, Montana, Poncho is his brother. And they didn't come to us together from Colorado, but like a lot of the siblings, they do end up fighting, and we had to give them their own space. But if Montana and Poncho were still in the same enclosure, walking around at the same time, it'd be kind of difficult to tell them apart. You guys might have saw me struggle a little bit back there when we were at Chuff and Athena. It's just because two tigers do look very similar. But if you look hard enough at their stripes, you can see a difference. No two tigers have the same stripes. They're completely unique to them, the same way that fingerprints are unique to us. And another cool thing about their stripes, they do actually go all the way down to their skin, kind of like a tattoo. Now here in this enclosure, we do have two white tigers, another set of brothers, named Roman and Donner. They came to us from Colorado. That guy on his platform, that's going to be Roman. Now guys, white tigers, very similar to those golden tabbies, are not a separate subspecies. This is just a genetic mutation that occurs due to a recessive gene. And you guys, just a little heads up, you can see Floyd now. He decided to come out, and he's over there on that other side. So if you wanted to see what he looked like, that's Floyd. But you guys, these white tigers, not a separate subspecies. They've got about a 1 in 10,000 chance of happening. So it's also not going to be seen out in the wild. Now sadly, there are less than 4,000 tigers left in the wild today. So that 1 in 10,000 chance is essentially slim to none. And even when it did happen, it was still very rare because of that lack of camouflage. Now, if we don't have white tigers happening out in the wild, how do we have so many in captivity? They are also unfortunately a product of inbreeding. All the white tigers in the U.S. could attend the same family reunion. They're all believed to be descendants of a singular white male tiger named Mohan. Mohan was captured on a hunting expedition back in the 1950s, and the people that captured him did figure out pretty quickly on. You breed a white tiger to its offspring or its siblings, you'll increase the chance of bringing out that white trait. So this led to years and years of repetitive inbreeding. Until today, we can see that they're all related to one another. So of course, all of that inbreeding is going to lead to many, many health issues for these animals. It's said about 1 in 10 white tigers is healthy, and the rest of them suffer from a wide variety of ailments. Things like cleft palates, crossed eyes, facial deformities, lung problems, skin issues, back problems, cancers. I could keep going. And that's why it's really important to note that anyone who breeds these animals is not doing it with the animal in mind. They might do it under the guise of conservation, but because these guys are not happening in the wild, because they are only suffering when they're alive, there's no purpose. So anyone who breeds them is only usually trying to make $1 off of them. We'll go ahead, let's scooch on up here, you guys. This next enclosure is home to Opie and Lila. Lila's a female lion. She's going to be inside her den right now, but you will see Opie. He's up there on his platform, that male tiger. These two came to us from Tiger King Park Zoo in Oklahoma. We actually worked with the Department of Justice in the summer of 2021. We rescued 10 cats from that facility. And I'm sure that many of you, by the sounds of it, that some of you know who the Tiger King is. And can probably assume that the animals that came from that situation were in very rough conditions. A lot of them had scars all over their bodies that we don't know what they're from. A lot have these big permanent calluses on their elbows. That's from being forced to lie around on improper substrates that were in their enclosures. And a lot were suffering from a really awful condition known as fly strike. Flies will get into open wounds. They will lay their eggs in there and eat away at the flesh of the animal. It's just all around a really, really nasty condition that, thankfully, through lots of love and care, the animals are doing much better today. But I will say that one of the downsides is that many of the animals here are going to be on pain management for the rest of their lives. We have many that are on our pain management program, just to, help keep them from feeling those pains that they get. And guys, I don't tell you any of these sad stories to make you sad, I promise. I don't do it intentionally. It is just the harsh reality of what these animals have had to go through before coming here to their forever homes. We'll go ahead and move on up here. And we'll try to switch us to a lighter note. And we'll talk about Miles. Miles is that female tiger. She's hanging out near the top of her night house area. Or near the top of her enclosure, near the night house area. Right outside there. And Miles is one of the chuffiest tigers that we have. Hey guys, chuffing is a sound that tigers make with each other. It's kind of like a friendly sound. It's to indicate, like, hey, I don't want any trouble. I'm being friendly in this moment, non-threatening. So it's kind of like a sign of submission between them, or just a friendly greeting. And it kind of sounds like this. I'm not good at it because I'm not a tiger, so don't hold that against me, but it'll sound similar to that. And if you guys are up there walking around, you might hear a tiger make a chuffing sound at you. They've picked up on the habit of making it to humans as well because they're here in captivity. So a tiger might chuff at you today, and if that happens, it's not a bad thing. Like I said, it's a good sign. So feel free to try to replicate that sound back to them, and you probably do it better than I would, and let them know that you are being friendly as well. We'll go ahead, we'll scooch on up. Our next enclosure is home to Cairo, a male liger. We'll talk about him in a second. And it's also home to Samira. She's a female lion. And those two also came to us from Tiger King Part 2. Now Samira, she's that female lion way up there in the corner. She's hanging out by Cairo. That's his night house. He's locked in there today. So she just wants to hang out near him and see what he's up to. So she's going to be hanging out by him. Now Samira is one of the loudest carolers that we have. We were talking about tiger sounds. Well, lions also make a variety of sounds. And one of their big sounds is called caroling. This is just their roar, but they'll roar to each other very loudly and long about a variety of things. They'll communicate about the weather, territory, food, and out in the wild, it is their main way of locating each other, locating other members of their pride. So it does have to be very loud. That caroling can be heard from up to 5 miles away. So if they get up to it while you guys are here, probably going to hear it. Now, Cairo, he is not out for us to see, but he is our male liger. So he's a very interesting hybrid. You guys will always be able to tell how a hybrid is named if you figure out the dad. The dad's name always comes first. So if your dad's a lion, your mom's a tiger, you'd be a liger. But if you flip that, and your dad was a tiger, your mom was a lion, then you'd be what's called a tigon. Now, the male hybrids cannot reproduce, but female hybrids can, about 50% of the time. So every now and then, it is possible to get a rare second-generation hybrid, like a liger. Dad was a lion, mom was a liger. So you can have ligers, tigons, and tigons as well. Very complicated, but like I said, if you figure out the dad, you are a step closer. Now, because Cairo is only 3 parts lion, essentially, he does just look like a very goofy lion. He's got a very interesting mane. So typically, a male lion's mane would be very dark and full. It's gonna go all the way down his sides, his back, his belly. But with Cairo, it just goes right around his neck. And typically, male lion, their mane would be a lot darker. Cairo's is just the exact same shade as his other furs. So if he were actually part of a lion pride, he would not be very high up there in the hierarchy. The darker and fuller a male lion's mane is, the stronger and healthier he is. The male lion in the pride that has the biggest, fullest mane will be the king. So, if those of you that have seen The Lion King do remember that movie, might remember that Scar and Mufasa were fighting pretty bad over who would be king. Now, Scar actually had a pretty good reason to be upset when you think about the movie, because his mane was a lot darker than Mufasa's. Now, you guys, down here in this corner, we are going to have 3 younger tigers. They're about 2.5 years old. They're siblings named Dodge, Jinx, and Rosie. And Dodge, Jinx, and Rosie are technically part of our Tiger King rescue. We rescued their mom from that rescue, and she gave birth to these guys about 12 days after. And we could tell that something was a little bit off about them. We had cameras set up in their dens, and we could see that these guys were not able to get their back legs up underneath them. This is one of the first cases of clubbed feet seen in tigers. Now, our vet did not have too much to go off of, but she did end up developing a pretty good physical therapy plan for them. And we ended up taking them down to the vet hospital twice a day, and we would do things like warm water massages, we'd put stents on their legs. We ourselves would basically help them get up, move, walk around, on top of just general exercises. Now, we couldn't do this for too long, only about 4 months, just because at that time it's going to get too dangerous for us. We were taking precautions like muzzling them to protect against their teeth. They still have sharp claws. They're about 40 pounds at that age, so we couldn't protect against those things. And as a hands-off facility, we want to do as little interaction with them as possible. We do not want them reliant on humans. We don't want anyone in there holding them or anything like that. So we went ahead and cut it off as soon as possible, with a little worry that, maybe it wasn't enough time, but it does seem like it was in just enough time. These guys, they do limp every now and then, but if they had not received that treatment, these guys would not have even been able to walk. So they do now all walk, they play, they roughhouse with each other and run around and enjoy life like the tigers they were always meant to be. So we are incredibly lucky that that treatment went well for them. And if you guys are ready, we'll go ahead, we'll wrap up our tour here, we'll head on back up top. I do like to show some replicas that I have with me. This is a replica of a tiger's tooth and a tiger's claw. And I know that those of you that have house cats know just how badly it hurts to be bitten or scratched by one of these. So I just can't imagine how it would feel coming from this instead. That's just a way of reminding everyone that these animals are predators, not pets. And we do like to say around here, it's not a matter of if they attack, it is a matter of when. And as much as we do love the animals here, we shouldn't know any of them. They never should have been subjected to the abuse they found them up here in the first place. But we are really grateful that we can provide them a great home. Even if we have the voices for them, we can help educate people about what they've been through and their stories. And you guys, as a 501c3 nonprofit, every single dollar we spend here shows the rest of their whole lives. So I just want to thank you all so much for coming out today. Thank you guys. We cannot do what we do here without the help of wonderful people like you. So we're incredibly appreciative. And I do apologize for the bumpiness and the loudness as we do get on back up towards the top here. Once you go ahead and get to the top, you guys will be more than welcome to go ahead and grab those seats on the side of the trail. And I can go ahead and go grab a gate for us. I can be passing out the True Sanctuary checklist if anyone wants to take one of those. And if any of you have any questions for me whatsoever, do not hesitate to stop me and ask any questions at all. But again, thank you guys so much for coming out today. I know it'll be a pleasure tour here at Turpentine. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.